Mr. Bloom, we're going to get started. We have votes that are going to occur. So we are going to be limited, as I'm certain you're very sad to hear, in the number of questions that we're going to ask you. I want to reiterate that these are questions that were given to you on June 22nd, that to this committee, in a seat similar to the one you're sitting in, you said absolutely that you would answer in writing. You did not answer them, and today you are refusing to answer them in writing, so we're going to go through this, where I ask you the question and get your answer.
Congressman, the only clarification I'd like to make is that I believe that the letter that the Secretary of the Treasury, or Tim Messett, on behalf of the Secretary of Treasury, sent you on November 1st, 2011, did not refuse to answer the questions because of the litigation. In fact, there's 2.5 pages of response to the issues raised in the letter. But that said, if you have questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
We will submit those questions and answers, because we have them, obviously, for the record, and everyone can see that, in fact, they say this is subject to litigation. But we're not going to waste our time on this.
Mr. Chairman, just one clarification. I have the letter, the November 1st letter, and I've just kind of perused it, but my staff has read it in detail. And just for clarification, you said that he said that it was under litigation. It just seems like there's a lot more to this letter than that. He seems to be answering quite a few things in detail. I just wanted just clarification on it. That's all.
Right. We have answers both in this letter and also letters an answer directly from Secretary Geithner. And in that letter, in those other letters, he specifically states, which is, he cited both, and you've cited it previously, an answer of litigation. And this does not answer the questions, but we'll go forward. Mr. Bloom, in the discourse between Treasury and PBGC, what role did the Auto Task Force play in the decision-making to terminate the pension plan of the Delphi salary retired workers?
I couldn't really expand on what Mr. Feldman said. I think that would be my answer.
So you have no separate answer of yourself?
No.
Well, Mr. Feldman indicated that it was an advisory position, and what we would like to know is what was the position of the Auto Task Force in those discussions with respect to the Delphi salaried workers and their pensions?
I think it was what Mr. Feldman said it was.
You're going to do that for every answer?
I don't know.
You don't have an independent answer?
On that question, Congressman,
Yes.
I do not have a different answer. If I agree with what's already been said, I thought it would be expeditious for me to save you.
If you'd answered it in June, would you have had your own answer? There are many that believe that there were significant numbers of conflicts of interests between the Treasury, PBGC, the Auto Task Force, and new GM. Secretary Geithner serving on both the board of PBGC, being the Secretary of the Treasury, the Auto Task Force being part of Treasury, and of course new GM receiving from the Treasury its capital infusion. Did you ever have a discussion at the Auto Task Force the actual or potential conflicts within Treasury and the Auto Task Force with respect to this bankruptcy proceeding and the Delphi salaried pensions, and what was the subject of those discussions?
I do not recall a conversation in Treasury about whether or not the issues you raised would pose a conflict of interest. I do not recall such a discussion.
Do you believe now that they do?
I don't see where a conflict of interest would have been, no, sir.
In the termination of the Delphi salaried pension plans, a significant issue of dispute are the foreign assets held by Delphi and the liens that PBGC either asserted or might have asserted against those liens. Ultimately, PBGC released these liens as part of a settlement in exchange for payments by new GM that did not include the Delphi salary retirees' pension plans although the liens did. Do you recall any discussions at the Auto Task Force concerning Delphi's foreign assets, the liens, and PBGC?
I do not recall any such discussions.
Do you, would you assert today that those discussions did not occur?
No.
Is it possible they occurred?
I think anything's possible. I do not recall any such.
Did you ever have a conversation about the Delphi's foreign asset and the liens of PBGC?
I have no recollection of having any conversation of that nature.
We're getting pretty far here. So far, we get you'll give us the answer of the gentleman who answered previously, or you don't recall. Helpful.
I can only testify to the best of my ability, Congressman.
Clearly. There's a significant amount of concern that has been raised about political considerations with respect to the PBGC negotiations and the pension plans, the salaried retirees' pensions, and even the issue of the foreign asset liens of PBGC. Did you ever have any consideration or any discussions concerning the political effects of the outcomes of your recommendations?
Could you clarify what you mean by the political impacts of the outcomes?
I think it's fairly clear. Did you have any discussions concerning the political aspects or consequences of your decision-making?
No, not that I recall.
The United Auto Workers have stated that the Delphi salary retirees should be treated with fairness and equity. Additionally, the UAW stated in a letter dated January 15, 2010, that it supports providing the same top-ups to the salaried workers as a matter of fairness and equity that had been provided to other Delphi workers. You answered Ms. Maloney and indicated that you understand the pain that people have. Do you agree with UAW?
I'm not familiar with the full context of the UAW's comment, but I can answer your question. I can't say whether I agree with them or not because I haven't read that document. I think a lot of people, as I said earlier, have suffered as a result of the GM bankruptcy, and if Congress would choose to help one of those constituents who was hurt, that would be up to Congress to do. I think it would open a can of worms, but it's not but I don't have a judgment as to whether Congress ought or ought not to do it.
Mr. Cummings?
I guess I have, what, about 10 minutes? I'm going to read this letter into the record. November 1st, 2011, Department of Treasury. It's addressed to the Honorable Michael R. Turner, and it says, Dear Representative Turner, and this is from Mr. Massad, the Assistant Secretary, Department of Treasury, and this is one of the letters that we were just talking about, and in response to questions that were raised sometime earlier by Congressman Turner. It says, I'm writing in response to your recent letter to Secretary Geithner, in which you raised certain questions regarding the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation decisions related to the pensions of certain former employees and retirees of the Delphi Corporation. You submitted these questions previously to Mr. Ron Bloom, who has since left his position with the administration. Please allow me to respond on behalf of the Secretary. We recognize that the bankruptcy of Delphi has been extremely difficult and challenging for all its employees, and we are acutely aware of the significant hardships that the entire United States automobile industry has faced in recent years. The issues you raise in your letter pertain to certain agreements entered into by General Motors Corporation in 1999 when the old GM spun off Delphi into a separate company, as well as decisions made in connection with Delphi's 2005 bankruptcy filing. Around the time of Delphi's 1999 spinoff from old GM entered into a, quote, top top-up agreements, end quote, commitments to pay supplemental pension benefits to certain participants in the Delphi hourly pension plan, represented by 3 unions: the United Auto Workers, the International Union of Electrical Workers, and United Steel Workers. Those agreements provided that in the event that benefits under Delphi hourly plan were frozen or the plan was terminated, OGM would cover any shortfall below the level of benefits promised. Over the next several years, Delphi suffered large losses and filed for bankruptcy in October 2005. In 2007, OGM, Delphi, and the 3 unions who were party to the top-up agreements agreed to extend these commitments. Although there were negotiations between OGM and other unions concerning similar arrangements, OGM did not enter top-up agreements with any other union, nor did it enter into an agreement with participants in the Delphi salary pension plan. At the time of the 1999 spinoff, the Delphi salary plan was fully funded, whereas the Delphi hourly plan was underfunded. Delphi's original plan was to emerge from bankruptcy proceedings without terminating its pension plans. In 2009, 4 years after Delphi filed for bankruptcy protection in 2005, it was determined that for Delphi to emerge from Chapter 11, its pension plans would need to be terminated. As a result, Delphi entered into agreements with the PBGC to terminate the Delphi salary plan and the Delphi hourly plan, and place both plans under the trusteeship of the PBGC. Treasury did not have a role in authorizing, approving, or consenting to the termination of the Delphi salary plan. In 2009, in connection with the bankruptcy proceeding of OGM and Delphi, General Motors Company agreed to honor certain commitments into which OGM had entered, including the 1999 top-up agreements. New GM has stated publicly that although the Delphi bankruptcy was, quote, a very difficult situation, it felt that it had made appropriate provisions for the Delphi salary plan at the time of the spinoff in 1999. The questions you submitted to Mr. Bloom primarily asked whether the Presidential Task Force on the auto industry was involved in the decisions made by the PBGC and GM regarding the pensions of former employees and retirees of Delphi. As Mr. Bloom explained in various congressional testimonies in 2009, and more recently before the subcommittee, the previous administration provided temporary loans to General Motors and Chrysler to avoid uncontrolled liquidations of these companies at a time when our economy and financial system were already severely stressed. President Obama agreed to extend that assistance, provided that the companies produce viability plans as to how they could become competitive. On February 15, 2009, President Obama created the Auto Task Force, made up of cabinet-level officials and staffed by Treasury, to review the viability plans for the companies. The overriding objective that guided the Auto Task Force was to bring much-needed stability to this crucial sector of our economy, keep hundreds of thousands of Americans working, and give General Motors and Chrysler a chance to become viable, competitive American businesses. As Treasury officials have stated, the President directed the Auto Task Force to take a commercial approach and ensure that in any restructuring, the companies took on only those liabilities necessary for a successful operation. The Auto Task Force refrained from intervening in the day-to-day decisions of these companies. These companies' restructuring, including GM's decision to assume top-up agreements entered into by GM in 1999, were consistent with those principles. These matters have also been reviewed by our nation's judiciary in 2 contexts, as well as by the Government Accountability Office. As you may know, the termination of Delphi's salary plan and its placement under the trusteeship of the PBGC are currently the subject of litigation in Black versus Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation. The court dismissed on September 2, 2011, the court dismissed a portion of the case against Treasury, the Auto Force, Secretary Geithner, Steve Ratner, and Ron Bloom. In addition, the bankruptcy court in the Southern District of New York reviewed and approved GM's bankruptcy and reorganization. In assessing the new GM's decision to honor the top-up agreements, the bankruptcy court found no violation of the bankruptcy code or applicable case law and concluded that, as a matter of reality, the purchaser needs a properly motivated workforce to enable the new GM to succeed, requiring it to enter into satisfactory agreements with UAW, which includes arrangements satisfactory to the UAW for UAW retirees. In addition, the bankruptcy judge and the district court approved the transaction at every step. None of those judges seriously questioned the validity of the legal process, which was typical for a bankruptcy sale. In fact, the bankruptcy judge stated, and I quote, "While because of the size of this case and the interests at stake, GM's Chapter 11 case can hardly be regarded as routine. GM's proposed Section 363 sale breaks no new ground. This is exactly the type of situation where there is a good business reason for an immediate sale," end of quote. In its March 30, 2011 review of the key events leading to the termination of the Delphi hourly and salary plans, GAO stated that, and I quote, "The Auto Task Force did not indicate that what should be done with the Delphi pensions," end of quote. "We are committed to continued transparency regarding the restructuring of General Motors. There is an extensive public record available concerning treatment of the pensions of Delphi employees and retirees. Congress has held several detailed hearings on the subject, and there are a number of publicly available court filings, bankruptcy court opinions, oversight reports, and statements from Delphi and General Motors. Treasury has posted online certain key automotive industry financing program documents, which are available at financialstability.gov. Additionally, pursuant to a request from you and other members of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, Treasury has provided you numerous documents related to the Delphi pension matter. In the end, GM underwent a fair and open bankruptcy. This process required deep and painful sacrifices from all stakeholders, including workers, retirees, suppliers, dealers, creditors, and countless communities that rely on a vibrant American auto industry. However, the steps that the administration took not only avoided a catastrophic collapse and brought needed stability to the entire auto industry, they also kept hundreds of thousands of Americans working and gave GM a chance to once again become viable, competitive American business, and they avoided further shocks to our financial system and economy at a time when we could at least afford it. Thank you for your continued attention to this important matter. Please feel free to contact me or my staff if we can be of further assistance. Sincerely, Timothy G. Masad. Mr. Bloom, do you have anything you can add to that? Have you learned anything else in an effort to satisfy the Chairman's questions?
No.
All right, I'll yield back.
Mr. Bloom, I want to thank you for sitting through and answering some of the questions that I had provided you in writing in June 22nd, on June 22nd of last year, that you had committed to answer in writing that you've never submitted answers to. And the reason why I appreciate you sitting here and answering them is because I wanted, on television and on the record, both your demeanor and your lack of answers to be evident. Mr. Bloom, we've had this hearing because you refused for 14 months to answer SIG TARP's questions. You had to come to our hearing because we have subpoena power. They don't. You come and you say, "I will be glad to answer SIG TARP's questions." Mr. Bloom, you're not glad to answer anybody's questions. You're not glad to answer mine. You're not glad to answer anybody's. And you were responsible for affecting billions of dollars and thousands of people's lives with our taxpayers' dollars. And people are not only hurt, they're angry. And this is exactly contrary to what President Obama promised us with the most open administration, not someone like you, sitting in front of us, unwilling to answer the questions. Now, I want to, Mr. Cummings read the letter. I want to reemphasize the paragraph that he read that is on page 2 at the bottom that says, PBGC, this is the subject, let's see. As you may know, the termination of the Delphi salary plan and its placement under the trusteeship of the PBGC are currently the subject of litigation in Black v. Pension Benefit Guarantee Corp. This letter is not an answer to the questions that I had submitted to you. Then we have, and I'm going to submit these for the record, Secretary Geithner's answers, which were similar questions that were posed as posed to you, where we're just trying to find out how were these decisions made, who made them, so that you can have the appropriate type of oversight over taxpayers' dollars, because that's how our government works. It's open. It's a democracy. You're not playing with, the undiscretionary dollars of the president. You're actually effectuating and administrating taxpayers' dollars. So Geithner had the same questions. I'm going to submit these for the record, and he says openly in the beginning answer that the termination of the Delphi retirement program for salaried employees and its placement under the PBGC's trusteeship are currently the subject of litigation in Black versus PBGC. I cannot comment on the specifics of any pending litigation. And then for the next 8 pages, these are the Secretary's response. I cannot comment specifically on these topics as they are the subject of pending litigation. I cannot comment specifically on these topics as they are the subject of pending litigation. I cannot comment specifically on these topics as they are the subject of pending litigation. And he goes on for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 31, 32, 33, almost 35 questions to answer the same way that he can't answer us. So here we sit. People have lost their pensions, billions of dollars spent. The Secretary of the Treasury won't answer the questions. You won't answer the questions. SIG-TARP has many of them. We're going to work with SIG-TARP on their processes of trying to solicit from you substantive and valuable answers to the questions. This committee has subpoena power. It has deposition power. Mr. Bloom, I assure you, we can continue to revisit this with you and your panel members. I would certainly hope that when you say you're going to participate and answer SIG-TARP's questions, that it's certainly going to be more thorough than your answers here. Now, Mr. Bloom, we're all waiting for a SIG-TARP report that's going to tell us what happened. GAO can't give it to us. This process should not be in this manner because of your commitment to the taxpayers. I mean, do we have your commitment that you will work to refresh your recollection, that you will try to answer fully to the your greatest ability the questions that SIG-TARP is going to have for you?
I will answer the questions that SIG-TARP asks me to the best of my ability.
Mr. Bloom, with that, we have votes that have been called. We're going to adjourn the hearing.